Okay. Friday, 20th of December, 2024. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Future Friday, plan and strategize. So I have another guest with me today to talk all about technology, AI, and this interesting concept of algocracy. So a rule by algorithms. Interesting. So please, Andreas, please, what can you tell us about the future, AI, technology, and algocracy? Please.
Thank you for having me. Here's the idea where it came from. Well, not where it came from on a personal level. So I start to see that technology is basically taking over our daily lives. And especially during COVID, we've seen that a lot, like, with the Zoom calls, with everything had to be remotely. And as I reflect on the whole world, I see that there's only this one direction that we're moving to. And there's actually a word for it when you're governed by algorithms, which is called algocracy or algocracy. That depends depending on your pronunciation. So pretty self-explanatory. Uh, the first part of the word is coming from the word algorithm, and krasi is kratos from Greek, which means government, basically governance. So, for example, in democracy, demos means the people. So, democracy is being ruled by the people. Allocracy is being ruled by algorithms. And I don't know if you want me to keep going or you have any
Oh,
questions, any specific questions as we go.
well, it sounds like because software is eating the world and everything uses software in some fashion, and well, our lives are dedicated by it and dictated by it, Amazon, YouTube, Google, whatever else. And behind all those things, those software is algorithms, and those algorithms determine what we see and what we don't see, what we buy, what we don't buy, what we consume, what we don't consume. That's what it sounds like. But please tell me, is that right? How right is that? And please tell me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be they decide, like the algorithms decide. It's just that at this point in society, we do need algorithms in order to function, at least to function in the optimal way, right? Like for sure, I can come to your house, like I can drive to your place, and then I, we could talk there, or I can just have a call with you. So an algorithm behind it was created for us to talk optimally, like more efficiently. And different people have different opinions about the technology taking over everything. And how I see it is there's only very few scenarios that we can have moving forward as a society. If, for example, a country decides to not participate in this autocratic movement that is happening, then they will fall behind economically. No, maybe not as many people will be interested in a country, like so there wouldn't be much tourism there. Uh, and on a military level, they will not be able to defend themselves because there's a big difference just having people with guns and just having 1,000 drones being coordinated through a very sophisticated code to attack the enemy. So if there are any conflicts between a country that is in the before times, let's say, before the whole technological revolution, let's just say, for example, the Amish, right? Let's just take the extreme. Those, if for whatever reason somebody wants to take over them, especially maybe not as much now, but in the future, it will be easier and easier through technology. So if you choose to be in a society that is stays uh, avoids algorithms, avoids technology, then you will end up being in a country that you just hope nobody touches. Otherwise, the country in the long term won't exist. Um, there's other scenarios for that. I take examples from real world countries, right? For example, China or maybe other East Asian countries, they took this approach of going full on technologically advanced as fast as much as possible through their daily lives. And to some extent, yeah, there is a how you call it, the bad side of it. But which this is one very based on. I'm based on the fact that this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it depends how algocracy will be implemented in a society.
Hmm.
Um, I see China going the wrong path, going very authoritarian, going very, oh, you just cross the road, they have face detection programs, and immediately you'll be fined. Like if you cross the road illegally. If it's like the light is red, but there's no cars, you cross, the camera sees you, and within a few minutes, you get a message on your phone, like losing like money from the fine. So that is a bad way to implement democracy in a society. But you do need it. That's where we are going no matter what. It's just how we implement. So as long as it's early, because we're still in the early, I believe if you think big, if you think in the long term, we are in the very early stages of democracy. We are still governed by politicians on most things. And those politicians say, okay, well, we're gonna need to have the camera, but eventually we don't need a lot of people to govern us. It's just how we implement the machines to govern us that matters. It's not necessarily a dystopian future.
Mm. Okay.
And the best example I can give is Bitcoin, a
Okay.
decentralized code, a decentralized algorithm that is a better alternative to the current way that we use money.
Okay.
So in a way, Bitcoin is one of the best examples to give when it comes to this algocracy movement. Well, it's not a movement, it's like a pattern that happens in a society as we move along in time and through technology.
Okay. So can you expand upon that? What's the threat? Because you mentioned China, you mentioned in different kind of you mentioned dystopian, and yet you mentioned that Bitcoin was a threat to it or a opportunity or an antidote to it. Can you explain more about the dangers here? What kind of problems are we
Mhm.
facing as a society, as you mentioned?
Um, I guess it comes out to each person's ideological beliefs.
Okay.
But personally, and I think many people will agree, is that there is a dystopian aspect. If you move the wrong path where there's a centralized entity, you typically the government or the banks or big corporations that dedicate that control everything, and it's way easier to do that through technology. That's why okay, I don't want to dive deep into things that I'm not really knowledgeable on, but that's why I believe in the past authoritarian governments failed easily. But now through technology, it's easier to control the people. It's easier to monitor it's easier to monitor every single hole in the dam. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Okay.
So the dam is the government trying to control the water, being the people. If there's a small hole, without technology, it's hard in a big dam to see the hole. But with technology, it's like, oh, that thing is wrong. We should fix it now. And that person gets arrested for questioning things. And yeah, it gets scary. You could go up to the point where they can control every single bit of your money. Right now, with cash, is not as easy. But I'm sure many people have heard about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies,
Hmm.
where at that point, every single penny that you spend, every single cent that you spend will be tracked and traced and will be questioned upon if something seems off in your transaction.
Mm.
And it's not just money, it's on every single aspect. Like, oh, you need a license for this, you need a license for that, you need to ask that person, you need to get permission, you need everything. And it's slowly becoming more and more regulations, more and more. It's just less freedom at the end of the day.
So you mean to
Yeah,
imply?
because technology allows. Well, no, no, no. Ask.
Yeah. Well, you see, you mean to imply that through Bitcoin's censorship resistant technology, meaning money you can spend without any third person telling you you can't move that, you can't do that, that technology challenges any potential dystopian world and society because you're able to spend your money, which some say is speech, freedom of speech, able to spend your money without anyone stopping you from buying or transacting. Is that one of the aspects of this?
Correct. Yes.
Hmm. Okay.
One of the aspects. Of course, the government can limit you in other ways.
Yeah.
If, for example, it limits you in your district or in your town, and you cannot leave unless you pay or whatever, then that's another way. This limiting you on a physical space, then no matter how much money you have, it's relevant. So that's also there's many aspects of it. It's not just money. It's just money is one of the biggest tool that we have in the current society. So that's Bitcoin. That's why I believe Bitcoin is. It's not just Bitcoin, of course. There's like many different technologies that came after that. But that's why I believe having solid money, and by solid I mean money that is not fiat money,
Hmm.
is not printed by the government, and is not controlled by the government. That's why having this alternative is so important.
Yeah, alternative. That's an interesting key word there. Interesting. Interesting. And you mentioned
Yeah,
CBDC
and
as well. Uh-huh.
yeah, CBDCs will. There's a lot of discussion about them. It's not just something in the distant future that we may or may not see.
Hmm.
I think in Europe they talked a lot about it in the European Union. Then they wanted to implement CBDCs, and on a small scale, I might be wrong, but I believe on a small scale they already have in some places just to test it out. I might be wrong on that,
Hmm.
but I know for a fact that they are at least discussing a lot about it.
I see.
And it also lines up with the trend of having more regulations when it comes to trading or putting your money in Bitcoin. You cannot. It's not as easy to do that anymore in the European as it used.
In the where,
So
please?
yeah, it kind of lines up. Sorry,
You said not so easy to do that, to buy Bitcoin where, please?
in the European Union.
European Union. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's where I'm from. So that's the things that I know.
Hmm.
I'm sure there are other places where it gets harder and harder to buy Bitcoin as well. Of course, if you know how, they cannot censor that. There's always a window to escape from. That's the thing in law where no matter how complicated and how think of every single scenario you try to cover up through law, there's always a window out of it. So there's always somebody who find a way to get around the system to find a loophole.
Okay.
So
So,
yeah, there are still ways. It's not it's possible.
okay. So, you're saying that Bitcoin is a solution to a lot of potential dystopian societies that will be built in the future.
Yeah,
And
correct.
you define dystopian by algocracy in a sense of our lives inadvertently are controlled by third party algorithms different aspects of our lives are controlled by different algorithms.
Yes, and the important key is that those algorithms are secret and centralized.
Secret and centralized.
We
Okay.
don't know what's Yeah, we don't know what's going on behind the code.
Mhm.
They're not open source, unlike Bitcoin, which again, Bitcoin is the best example, but of course, there's many open source projects that benefit society.
Mm.
And I'm a very big advocate for open source algorithms.
Open source.
Open source meaning that anybody who with knowledge, with any programming knowledge, can go and look at the code and
Okay.
read it and understand it.
So things like
Uh,
Nostr.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
And the thing with just like a side topic, I guess, the thing with social media is that we're the dominant social media. It's like they are already established in society.
Okay.
Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever, Instagram, they're already established, and it's hard to move the needle from that because a network is as powerful as the number of users it has,
Mhm.
and it's an exponential growth. So if, for example, I build the next Facebook, but I add all the best features and I have it open source and I have this, I have that, I have the smartest AI that you can use in order to have the best posts you can possibly have. Like imagine if I have everything, the best coders to build that platform. If there's no people, it's worthless.
Mm.
And to convince millions, if not billions of people to move into another, eh, Nostr, for example, it's very hard. And we've seen that with many different platforms as Twitter went through a lot of different political ideologies with different CEOs.
Mm.
We see that, I remember there used to be this Parler or Gab when people from the right were getting censored. And then Truth Social became a thing. And then now Elon Musk has it, so it's different. So people on the left are like, okay, we're going to Blue Sky, which is it has every single site that was not Twitter at the end of the day stayed small, very small relative to Twitter.
Mm.
Uh, so we're very established in which social media are relevant and people are using.
Okay. Very interesting.
So it will be hard to transition a whole society into a more open and a more fair platform.
Mm. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Very
And yeah, that's the social media aspect of
okay.
the talk.
So this is a clear and present day.
But I want to be more optimistic and say when people choose freedom over everything, eventually, slowly, different projects are built up.
Okay.
I
Freedom.
cannot hear you.
What was that,
I
please?
cannot hear you.
Yeah. You said freedom over everything. That's quite a nice statement. Can you expand upon that, please? What do you mean by that? Freedom over everything.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you for about a minute.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
I can hear you, not a problem. But please, you said freedom over everything. And please, can you expand upon that idea, please?
Absolutely. Eventually, as people get more and more pressured into compliance and into regulations, more and more people will seek a way out.
Okay.
Therefore, there will be a project, even though it will start small, like Bitcoin. Eventually, more and more people will look into them and be like, wait a minute, that's the way out. So slowly, more and more people are built into this network, into Bitcoin, into other open source projects, whatever it may be.
Mm.
And the more people there are in a network, the more people are, the network becomes more powerful. Imagine you have 10,000 Bitcoins, but nobody accepts Bitcoin. That's useless.
Okay.
Like, no matter, even if Bitcoin is truly better in every way, if you have 10,000 of them, but nobody accepts it, then that's why back in the day it was not worth much.
Okay. Yeah. But then more people were willing to spend them back then in general and to get the ball rolling, that the game theory. And also what I've realized very recently is that even with the mining back then, the mining was also encouraging the growth and the game theory to push it all forward as well. It's that nice positive feedback loop. So yeah, but otherwise, as a network grows, it becomes more valuable. More people there are, the more valuable it is, the more connections and nodes, let's say. That makes sense, yeah. But we have a few minutes left, Andreas. Anything else you want to share or talk about with this idea? Because it sounds like a very clear and present danger on the horizon, and even today. But anything else you want to share in the last few minutes?
I Yeah, absolutely. I want to end it on an optimistic note, and we already see countries like El Salvador accepting Bitcoin. We see other countries where they may not have it as a legal tender, but they basically don't care, such as the UAE. They accept Bitcoin as a payment, as a transaction. If some people accept it there, you can use it just like any other currency. And I do see this movement of people wanting just less regulation and just less government and less and more freedom. And I do see this, let's call it, the best way to explain it is the idea that Balanji, I don't know if you know, I don't remember his last name. Balanji, he's a lot into the cryptocurrency community. He wrote a book called The Network State. And what he explained was this, there's the Eastern, there's the whole BRICS idea of Russia, China, India, and all those countries building up. And then there's the West, like NATO and the EU and the US, and um, Anglo-Saxon countries that
Hmm.
are like Western countries, basically. So there's like these two different groups in the world. Like this, the world is like split into two, more or less. And there's now slowly becoming this third group, a more libertarian leaning group, which El Salvador being one of the key countries of it. But then we also see places like the UAE that are more into freedom, like they don't ask you about a lot of things. And when I say freedom, I mean freedom of uh, more like free trades, not necessarily freedom of expression, because of course the UAE is a Muslim country, but they are slowly becoming more and more open to different ideas.
Mm.
So I do see this third uh, part of the world, different countries in different places that are slowly just out of both of these two sides, which is basically two sides of the same coin. Like no matter where you go, it's just you will have more regulation.
Mm.
And through algorithms, people can connect, people can have networks, people can have a way out. And I personally have a lot of ideas on how we could implement algorithms into many different parts of society in a decentralized manner
Mm.
and have it in a more open and maybe even a more efficient way of doing things
Okay.
on any aspect you might ask me about. And
Okay. So otherwise,
yeah,
as we slowly wind down, it, where do you want to send people to find more about you? Website or social media?
I'm not really a social media person, ironically.
That's all right. That's all right. But any final words at all while we're still here? In a few seconds.
um Long live Bitcoin.
God save the coin.
Yeah.
Interesting me. Interesting meme. Okay, long live the coin. Okay. But otherwise, interesting, Andreas. Very interesting. Freedom above everything. The world is splitting, bifurcating. BRICS nations, the West, Anglo-Saxons, and libertarian countries. Interesting. Algocracy, and be careful of it. And how Bitcoin is a potential remedy for this, and freedom increasing and freedom enhancing technology. Number go up and freedom go up technology. Go hand in hand. But otherwise, awesome. Otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.